Geoffrey Kendrick, he's head of European Foreign Exchange Strategy at Nomura International. Yeah, he joins me in the studio now. Geoff, great to have you in. And I know that your view is essentially a change at the helm of the SNB doesn't necessarily mean any change in the direction of policy. I'm just wondering, though, how difficult it's going to be, given the furore over all of this, over the currency trades made by Hildebrand's wife and the opposition that already existed to the monetary policy. How difficult is it going to be for Thomas Jordan to defend the cap on the franc?
Absolutely. I mean, the main knee-jerk reaction yesterday was on the view that Hildebrand was the only member on the board who has any market experience at all. So that's kind of where the credibility around the 120 floor comes into play. But having met Thomas Jordan a couple of years ago myself at a Bloomberg lunch in Zurich, I'd say he's extremely credible. I would say the SNB policy so far has been extremely credible. Not only has it been credible, it's also been very profitable. ECB losses from 2009, 2010 have now roughly halved since they've put this floor in play.
But nevertheless, he'll still be under a great deal of domestic opposition to the currency policy.
Absolutely. I mean, domestically, they would like to see Euro-Swiss a lot higher. Fundamentally, Euro-Swiss probably would have been trading around parity had it not been for this 120 floor. So exporters are already a lot better off, so roughly 20%, and volatility is much lower now. So actually the policy has been extremely effective, as well as credible and profitable.
So are you recommending going long then on the franc?
We actually went long Euro-Swiss yesterday morning, before the Hildebrand resignation. I would certainly be quite comfortable holding that position, and if we do see a dip below 121, which is possible given we're quite close to that barrier that markets have been talking around there, I'd actually be doubling up that position.
Well, so then what about the prospect of a higher cap for the franc?
I think that's also very unlikely. Before the September 6 move last year to go to 120, Euro-Swiss traded about 5 big figures in about a day and a half. It was extremely volatile. So when we came into the December meeting, some analysts were talking about a move to 125. That would have been a very small gain, in my opinion, with the risk that it would then see market participants challenge 125. If they did that and broke it, they'd probably challenge 120. So high risk, low gain strategy.
Geoff, let me ask you about prospects for the euro, because we've seen some very interesting moves just over the past few days below the 130 level. Nevertheless, we have yet another meeting taking place today in Berlin between German Chancellor Angela Merkel and the IMF boss Christine Lagarde this time. What are you watching and what are your expectations for euro moves over the next few weeks?
Well, I'm certainly telling investors to remain structurally bearish on euro against pretty much all currencies. Unfortunately, the eurozone now is really in a self-fulfilling cycle where the debt held by governments is feeding into negative growth as they start their austerity plans, and also banks are having to shrink balance sheets in Europe. So that's a very bad mix economically and politically, and also in terms of market players around the bond and sovereign debt issue story.
So you're bearish on the euro throughout the year, not just in the next few months?
Certainly in the first quarter. I think the first quarter is key, and probably by around the end of March, once we get through the March 20 Greek 15 billion redemption, we'll know whether or not the Greek PSI deal will get done. If it doesn't get done, euro could go a lot lower than 120, which is our target for the end of the quarter. But if that does get done and the ECB steps up its bond buying program, perhaps in slightly greater size between now and then, things could stabilise, and perhaps euro around 120 will be the floor for the year.
There you go. Thanks very much indeed. So 120 by the end of the first quarter. Geoffrey Kendrick, head of European Foreign Exchange Strategy at Nomura International.